Hello, everyone. We're back again. Daria and Ivy, the ladies of Not So Giant Women, Steven Universe podcast. Today on the menu is episode 8, Serious Steven. I don't know. Do you think Steven can possibly be serious?
Yeah, I mean, that's the usual question now is, what do I take away from the title? And my guess is Stephen trying to be serious, but as Ivy so wisely points out, that's got to be a phenomenon in itself that he should even try. Oh, goodness, let alone succeed.
Well, I have met Stephen, so I agree with this assessment. What do you say we watch?
Yeah, here we go.
We are the crystal gems. We'll always save the day.
I really liked that one. I mean, that's possibly one of my favorites so far.
That was my favorite so far at that point as well. Mostly because Garnet is great.
It's very visual, so I'm not sure how the recap is going to work in words, but let's give it a shot. We open on the remnants of an amusement park. A ride has fallen to bits. People are lying in pain and groaning everywhere, including our heroes. And then we cut to 2 weeks later. Our heroes are in the warp stream, and Stephen is told this is his first serious mission. Therefore, their gems are not sure why he brought the ukulele, and he almost loses it, but manages not to get seriously hurt in retrieving it despite everyone's admonitions. He does fall a few meters when they materialize into a patch of giant strawberries and is set upon by, well, probably perfectly regular butterflies, but as Stephen notes, they look much bigger when they're on your eyeballs. The four go off on their quest. They think this will be a fairly straightforward mission or not, as they arrive at a giant inverted four-sided pyramid. Garnet produces a key which opens it, and they go inside to find a large chamber with several doors leading off. There is some discussion as to what Stephen should do or who he should go with. Pearl, of course, thinks he should stay here and be safe. Amethyst thinks he should come with them and be in danger. He is set to go with Garnet. During this, there is a magic triangle thingy that Pearl tells Stephen not to touch, and you've got to wonder why she bothers at this point, because of course he does. Anyway, they try setting off down the passages. We're into another series of very video game friendly environments as they are walking across traps with descending spikes and having to stick to particular squares, otherwise a whole room collapses on them. Stephen has figured this is when he must be serious Stephen for his serious mission. Pearl, I think, fears this will be like the teacups all over again. Stephen says he is past that now because he is serious Stephen. During one trap, we see back to 2 weeks earlier, in which they were going to go on the teacups, the ride. For those not familiar with it, this is essentially giant teacups that you sit in and they spin while they are themselves spun around, usually high in the air. The gems and Stephen try to go on this ride. Pearl has misunderstood and brought an actual teapot. Despite how much the others appear to be enjoying themselves, Stephen feels ill. We're still in the flashback, and decides he has to get off the ride while it's still going and still raised, and dives down and falls onto the ride's operator, causing the operator to pull the lever which controls the speed all the way back and break off, flinging parts of the ride and people all over the place and generally causing destruction and, remarkably, no deaths that we saw, but probably a fair amount of injury. The ride's operator tells Stephen that he is not allowed to go on the rides ever again. He's one of the few people we've seen actively angry with Stephen so far, not counting Lars, who is just sort of generally angry with everyone and everything he sees. It was while Stephen was having this flashback that Garnet took him across the most dangerous of the traps, because apparently he had a nap to do so, which he finds slightly surprising. He tries to tune his ukulele while they're being almost crushed by spikes, only held off by Garnet's Hulk hands. And after all these ordeals, they end up back in the main chamber again, as do Amethyst and Pearl. It seems that no matter which door you go out, you end up back in the main chamber. Amethyst in the background is having the worst of this as she keeps running off and coming back with things like bear traps on her head, or in one case encased in ice. Stephen remembers the words about this being just like the teacups and figures maybe this is just like the teacups and that the room is rotating everyone around, and that is why they keep ending up in the same place and not able to navigate. Garnet uses the gauntlets to punch through the floor, and they all fall through to a series of floating and moving triangles. Pearl, with another head hologram, explains the working of the room, but as others point out, Stephen has already put it together for us. Garnet picks up Stephen to throw him to the center where the main magic triangle thingy, which was the key to it all, is located, with the phrase "Serious Stephen go," as he has been noting that he is Serious Stephen all through the episode. He just about makes it, pulls out this magic triangle thingy from where it is, and everything runs to a halt. Having retrieved what they need to, they exit the now stable pyramid back into the strawberry patch, and Stephen tries to sing another song, but he is once again set on by butterflies as we star Iris out.
Oh,
so yeah, that was a good one with lots of action this week and lots of little character moments from everyone. A lot of Garnet, whom often we've noted has been very terse, but shows how much she keeps her cool by how much she doesn't despair of Stephen when he's accompanying her through all the traps and corridors and what have you, and even indulges his Serious Stephen affect as she throws him toward the center.
yeah. Seems like she's down to humor him. Like she'll go along with what he needs and, let him set the tone. Kind of
nice. We
nice.
saw a rare smile from her before they started the teacup ride.
You're right. A little bitty smile. I mean, it's many episodes from now, but no spoilers. There's a scene where her mouth goes from happy to sad, or disappointed or something. And it's so, there's nothing else moves on the picture, but it just changes the entire mood of her face. One line, happy, sad. I guess that has a lot to do with the fact that her eyes are blocked, so you can't tell what the rest of her face is doing.
And as ever, the other gems fall into line when they're fighting over what Stephen should or shouldn't do. She just says, he's going to come with me, and that's the end of the discussion.
Yep. And of course, Pearl wants to be cautious, and she doesn't want him to go with Amethyst or anybody else. And Amethyst, of course, is like, no, let's go solve the mystery. She's taking him in there. Pearl's like, no, you are an accident waiting to happen. It's just adorable.
And another case of Stephen's strange childlike thought processes saving the day as he remembers his problem on the teacups.
Yeah, that was a little flash of brilliance there. He just happened to be right about it.
I imagine he's had flashes of brilliance that are less right here and there.
Yeah, and you know what? He probably plays video games.
So he, at least on some level, knows what he's in for, but probably a bit scarier up close.
Oh, sure. Fire's a lot hotter.
I did kind of like when we saw the big trap that was lava and falling things and places to fall and all the rest, and Stephen just kind of flashbacks into a nap and misses the whole thing.
Yeah.
By this time, we can take it as read that Garnet's awesome enough to pull that off without interference.
Yeah, I'm sure that she didn't even have to do a whole lot of thinking about it. Interesting storytelling technique this week, going forward and then going back to the 2 weeks later and the 2 weeks back.
Yes,
2 weeks
it's
ago.
something some shows do better than others. I think that this time we managed it pretty well because we're in such thoroughly different settings and it is relevant what happened in the teacups.
Right. At first you see the carnage and then you see a 2 weeks later sign and you're like, wait, aren't we going to see how we got to this? But instead we're going forward.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that we didn't go to 2 weeks previously and showed us leading up to the teacup disaster. But then there wasn't much leading up to the teacup disaster. It took about 2 seconds for Stephen to ignite that one.
Right. It was just a Stephen, the name of the particular kind of disaster. And then Stephen happened here. We call it a Stephening. He also managed to mess up the falling out of the warp again. This is the second time that we've seen him warp, and the second time we've seen him fall out of it. Not too disastrously.
For a moment, I thought the gems had materialized without him and he'd been lost in the stream somewhere, but he was only a few meters off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would have been terrible. I mean, we don't really see much so far of like how that would work, how he could get lost and what would happen to him. So
well, yeah, if Pearl is to be believed, it's dangerous to not basically stick in the stream while you're using it. Pearl being Pearl, we're not quite sure exactly how dangerous this is, if it's, potentially fatal or just not done. But I don't know, going through subspace or gem space or whatever, I'd want to err on the side of caution. And in fact, they mentioned the pyramid and all its traps were gem powered, again, suggesting a whole network and world of gem things.
Yeah, this time and last time the warp pad thing happened, and it was also the last time we saw him use a warp pad was when they were visiting another gem place, which was the Sea Spire. And unlike the last time, they were just trying to save that place. They were trying to preserve it, whereas this one, they seemed to be after something. They wanted to chase down this gemstone.
This at least suggests to me that there's, a network of gem civilization or worlds or something like that, in which most things are gem-centric in some degree or another. We've seen gems are parts of animals and machines and can power machines, and that many things once destroyed release little gem token that our heroes take and do something with.
Yeah. And they went to this thing, but unlike with the monsters that come to them and they capture, it's like they went out to find this one and take the gemstone. And it wasn't bothering them as far as we know. It seems like they warped out wherever it was to go get this. So that's like, I don't know, it seems like there's a variety of mission types.
Yeah, someone left a gemstone here ages ago. Just go and pick it up. Like, oh, let's take Stephen because this is a straightforward mission and we can tell him it's serious and everything.
And it's in the middle of this strawberry battlefield where Pearl says it was once a gem battlefield.
Yeah, so maybe there was
it's interesting.
there was a huge battle there, and that's one of the reasons there's no one hanging around now except for butterflies.
There were some very large weapons hanging around, and an awful lot of them too. And so must be the type of weapon that does not come out of your gemstone.
Well, presumably, sometimes even gem warriors just have to make do.
What if you were a gem, but you just had a really crappy white weapon, like a piece of rope that didn't do anything, or an ice pick,
football rattle?
Yeah. So you need a sword.
That's
probably
that's
gotta happen.
We wondered last episode quite what leads someone to have a particular weapon, if it's something about them or if it's just luck of the draw.
Yep, it's definitely not been said. And we only have these 4 to base it on.
One of whom has technically 2 weapons and 2 gems, so make what you will of that. Well, Garnet.
2 weapons? You mean a left hand and a right hand for the Garnet's gauntlets?
And she's also got a gem in each hand, at least as far as I can tell. So I don't know what's going on there, as everyone else just has the one, but everyone else just has it at a center point in their body.
That's true. Yeah. So I guess it makes sense that if she has one in each palm, that she would also get to have a glove for each hand. But, Pearl and Amethyst don't make gem weapons that, like, have anything to do with that body part. Like, Amethyst pulls her whip out of her chest, but she doesn't do anything that involves her chest with it. Whereas Garnet with the 2 hands, like, it's just like, all right.
When someone says standoffish, she's very direct in her battle style.
Yes, she's hands-on. Yep. She also pulled that pyramid-shaped key out of nowhere. I don't know.
I didn't know if she was creating that, or if that's just like a subdimensional pocket that she just keeps stuff in, or if she is some kind of particular type or rank of gem that can just make keys to get into gem pyramids.
Yeah, at this point, there's just so much stuff kind of being thrown at you that it's all just weird gem stuff.
There's obviously a lot of weird gem stuff to this universe, because when our 3 got there, they didn't know how the pyramid worked and things like that. They were aware of the touch gem, pull out gem stuff happens or doesn't happen principles, because that seems to be a sort of basic premise, but there was no sort of, oh, this is obviously one of our Mobius pyramids that does this, and this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And they were kind of surveying the scenery as they went in, as Steven's yelling about Steven's the best. They're actually seeming to be kind of looking around. They certainly aren't acting like they've been there before. They're looking at the drawings on the walls, which look like sort of old murals that you would see at like some other kind of pyramid. So
whatever it is about gem civilization, it's obviously fairly spread out, and not everything is kept up and active, which I could guess many theories about, that there was once much more thriving and something has happened to break down living island towers and leave giant pyramid traps and battlefields that had apparently were just left to overgrow with strawberries. Obviously no one came through and retrieved all the weapons and things. They just left the local nature to do its thing, and probably, at least as far as we can tell, it doesn't look like anyone's been there between the battle and now, whenever that was.
Yeah, at least with the Sea Spire, there was this huge moat, like this thing around it so that nobody could get over there. But with this, you don't see any keep out signs.
No, just abandoned.
Yeah. Well, maybe it can't hurt anybody if you don't have the key to get inside.
Yeah, they were intimidated when they saw it, but I didn't know if they, on some level, recognized it, or if they were just kind of, oh, look, a giant orbitous pyramid, which is upside down. That's probably bad news.
Yeah, and if Pearl isn't explaining it to everyone in sight, then you know that not much is known about it.
If she'd known, she would have projected a little pearlogram of what this is and what they were used for and all the rest.
Most likely. I liked that teacup explanation and Pearl trying to put it in her own terms. Garnet's like, Steven already figured that out. And she puts it back into her head.
I liked the squash it back in thing, even though we know she doesn't have to do that. It's just obviously her mood.
Yes. Almost like she's covering her mouth, but it's not her mouth.
And poor Amethyst's getting trapped and frozen and whatever else, entirely because of her own impetuousness. There's a better word. Impulsiveness, that's the word. Because by now she definitely knows that going out just gets you hurt and leads you back. She was standing right there when someone said it 30 seconds ago. But no, she's going to keep on doing it because she's just getting very impulsive and frustrated, and only stops because she got frozen.
I'm actually curious on that note why Garnet said the answer was just to keep going back in again and again. Like, what did she think they were going to do? So I don't know, maybe she just wanted to explore every room and see if there was some kind of clue to put it all together, but it seemed like she was just going to do it forever.
I read her as being a bit of a determined person, that there must be something in here. We're just going to keep doing it over and over again until we find whatever that key is. She possibly could have done better if she sort of had to stop and thought about how it all worked, but she was obviously very intent on finding it out the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, but as soon as Steven came up with his idea, and it seemed like she agreed that that must be the gem physics of what's going on, she just starts punching the floor.
I took it then that she was looking for any cogs or working that would show things revolving. As it happened, it was far more magical and glowy triangle-y, but they found what they were looking for.
Yep. So Steven's attempts to be serious throughout were not very serious.
It mostly seemed to consist of him saying he was serious.
Yes. And then he's like, we're on a magic treasure hunt for some magic treasure jug. Something. Magic something.
And then he has to tune his ukulele while they're being crushed by spikes, and even Garnet advised this might not be the best time.
I know, so politely she's holding these spikes up. Steven, it probably is not the best time for that. It's adorable. I really liked seeing kind of that side of her. Well, in that case, she was sort of scolding him, but I liked that she made a little joke about he might trigger a trap with that gun show.
That one, yes. I like just the weirdness of her saying gun show, of all things.
Oh, yeah. It's very weird. Yeah. And he says, I'll put these babies away and use my minds. And then immediately triggers a trap. Yeah. I thought
she's probably the best one too.
With Garnet,
she's probably the best one to leave Stephen around at this point, because Amethyst is just going to dive in headstrong, and he's obviously at least mostly human, so as far as we can tell, and he would probably not survive very long. Pearl would probably be too intent on telling him not to do things, and might even distract herself in the process. But let's face it, at the start, for all her words, she was not looking at Stephen when she told him not to touch the triangle thing, and therefore in no position to actually stop him touching the triangle thingy. So Garnet probably has the best control and presence of mind to take Stephen.
Right. And it seemed like the way that she spoke to him when he was in mortal danger was at least effective. Like, now is not the best time for that. He picks up the ukulele and runs away. And, she does a cartwheel and she gets past all of the spikes. But you can imagine that if Pearl was trying to do that, she would freak out, like screaming like a chicken, and probably upset him too. I don't know. It seems like she does have a pretty low threshold for becoming panicked. You see it in this episode where she said I don't know what it means, because she couldn't figure out what was going on. And then she's like, this place is a death trap. So didn't seem like her logic held together too well. It seemed like him coming into this whole plot with his ukulele. Honestly, I thought it was going to get them out of some kind of scrape, but it did not. And that surprised me when I first saw this one.
No Chekhov's ukulele.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he used it at the end to play a silly song.
Yeah, I knew we were going to get a song or two out of him.
Yeah. And one didn't even include the ukulele. He's yelling about treasure.
True.
I guess that passes for a song. It's not a showy soundtrack song, but the serious song was notable. But yeah, that didn't have like a vital reason to be there. It's just kind of part of showing us Stephen's way of dealing with things.
I noticed the animation this week seemed a lot looser than we've seen in a few other episodes. I don't know if this is a animator artist of not seen as closely before. There are a couple of bits.
We have seen them once before.
A couple of bits where Stephen looked almost simian, especially in profile.
The monkey face Stephen. Yeah. So this is Joe Johnston and Jeff Liu. They did Gem Glow.
All right.
So that's where you've seen them. And we kind of talked about the pair, Raven and Paul, that they sometimes get the scary ones. Joe and Jeff, they tend to handle the action. They do a lot of the ones that have action sequences in battles. So maybe that's why they were handed this one, because there would actually be some action.
That would fit with some of the designs being sort of a bit looser, because you're going to be just moving them about so much that you're not going to be stopping for every detail. And it wasn't a huge difference, just a few things I noticed here and there.
Mm-hmm. And I liked the art in this one. I thought it was very interesting, very, especially the backgrounds, like that mural when they first came in, that, the story that's up on the wall, like this has been the topic of people trying to puzzle it out, all the fans trying to figure out what secret story that was telling.
Oh, yeah.
Because, if you look at that mural, it seems to be pretty clearly depicting Stephen's mom, that she looked like the same big pink lady that you see in the picture in Greg's garage. So a lot of theories came out of this episode.
And definitely expanding the world, and also just not giving us, just some generic hieroglyph-looking things to tide us over, giving something for the viewers to watch for and to rewatch for when they go back.
Yeah. Yeah. And we still don't know, it hasn't been said who built this temple. Is it, gem people, or is this like a human place telling a gem story that got a gem in it, or like what's going on? We don't really know what the deal is, but there's a lot of unknowns about it.
Well, one of the most significant is we know there was a battle, but not between who and who.
That's right. Who are they fighting?
If we take them at their word, there were gems involved, but was it gems versus someone else, or who knows what?
A very good question. Mm-hmm. Some kind of battle.
I'm getting more and more intrigued by, the gem culture, ecosystem, world, sub-universe, whatever it's going to be called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's something I definitely look forward to when I've seen more, being able to go back and put the pieces together.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what kind of picture you start making. Would you like a probing question?
Please do. Probe me.
Okay, so in your summary and ensuing conversation, you did point out kind of there was a lot of focus on how the 3 gems approach things differently and very characteristically. So we kind of saw personalities very on display there for how they will solve problems.
Yep.
So we say, Garnet is patient, determined, very competent, maybe a little stubborn. And Amethyst with her charging in, expecting, having no plan. It's all, just going to deal with things as they come.
All impulse.
And Pearl trying to figure out the logic.
All impulse, yeah. Amethyst.
Yes. So we saw Pearl trying to figure out the logic of the place and then sort of panicking when it didn't pan out to anything that made sense to her. So like now that we've had kind of more tools to analyze these people, I was thinking we could try to think of some personality analysis boxes that we could maybe drop them into. Do you know enough about Harry Potter to do Hogwarts houses?
I'd probably just need a quick refresher on which one's which, because I scramble a couple of the names, even though I know what they're about.
People tend to find this very entertaining. Like, which one would you put in what? I'm not really a Harry Potter buff, but
I've read
people who get like super into it have very strong opinions about this.
I've certainly read and seen them, and I sort of know what the houses' things are. I just occasionally mentally swap over the houses' names for no good reason.
The main characters of Harry Potter are in the Gryffindor. They're about bravery, I guess. And Ravenclaws are supposedly the smart and studious ones. And the Hufflepuff, I guess, are the ones that do... they seem to be sort of the leftover house in practice, but they are loyal and focus on hard work and friendship. And the Slytherins, it seems like they always stick them with the evil reputation, but they are cunning and... do just about anything to get ahead, I guess.
So as for our main characters on this show...
I don't have a great answer for this, but I wondered if you did.
Well, I wouldn't be averse to putting Pearl in Ravenclaw. I think if anyone's a thinker, in her case an overthinker, she'd fit. I think both Stephen and Amethyst would go into Hufflepuff. They've got some very social and emotional values.
Sure.
And certainly I wouldn't describe either of them as cunning or intellectual. So there is a bit of what you said, that it's kind of the leftover house. Garnet appropriately is a bit hard to read. Part of me wants to say that because she's the leader of a group of heroes, she should be in Gryffindor. But I would not be, even though she's, so far as we can tell, not evil, there could easily be something cunning working behind that exterior, and certainly an intensity we saw this week when she wanted to go back through the door over and over and over again until they found what they needed. And we have seen Slytherins be very determined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they did say that Harry Potter was almost a Slytherin.
True. Yeah, I remember that bit, in fact. So, yeah, maybe one of the things is there's not as much dividing those houses as they'd like to think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just that currently they have all the villains in them, but,
Yeah. I really, I don't want to go into like a Harry Potter digression, but one of my friends and I said it would have been nice if there were some dissenters in Slytherin, like that there were more, quote, good Slytherins if you didn't want them to all be pigeonholed as evil. So
well, I can't remember the backstory, but you can also say that it just happens now to have all the villains in it.
Yeah.
At the time that we're following the adventures of the main characters.
It's true, kind of like how political parties migrate and weren't invented to have those issues, but now they do. What about if I'm trying to think of something that's not too complicated of like personality tropes, but the only one that's coming to mind right now is like elemental personality types, and I don't know if you know anything about that either.
No, I don't
but
know
there's 4
one.
of them, so that's always nice. What's that?
No, I don't know the elemental personality types. I'm assuming we're talking about the 4 classical elements.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty complicated, just because actually for me, because I like elemental lore and stuff like that. I did for a while. I had one apartment that I decorated the 4 main rooms in elemental themes.
Oh, that is awesome. Oh.
Yeah, I only lived there for a year also, so it was such a waste.
Oh, but it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's worth it for that year, Ivy.
Well, I did take a lot of wonderful pictures. So, but air tends to be kind of the more intellectual kind of thing. So I did it for my living room where I had my library. Mm-hmm. And of course, earth is the kitchen, where it's the hearth, it's the home, it's the sustenance, it's the body, it's the food. So, and then my bedroom was water, because that's kind of the emotional and associated with dreams and the unknown, maybe, and really just emotions and thoughts and relationships also. But I don't have a relationship to put that in. So, fire is more like passion. So I had that be in my utility room where I had all my toys. So
cool.
Yeah. But for how it relates to personality types, I think kind of similarly, it's air is the mind and earth is the body. Fire is more the soul and the passion. And what did I not say? I didn't say water is kind of the emotions and the thoughts and the connections. So there's so many associations with that, but I actually have trouble with this one if I was going to do it, because each of them has a different aesthetic from how their personality actually is.
Yeah.
I think that Pearl would be a water aesthetic because she's Pearl and her room is full of water, but obviously she has a mental aesthetic to her, which would be air. So it's very complicated. Or Garnet is very like practical and solid, so that would be earth. But her aesthetic, she looks like fire. So
yeah, I don't know enough to know if there are traits people associate with the real world gems that go with the personalities of the characters here either.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I used to know those kind of things. I just don't anymore.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I can't really think of anything besides like the massively complicated, like Myers-Briggs kind of types. And that's 16 of them. And I don't know them well enough to be like, oh, this person's this and that person's that. So
I have a long history of being rubbish at Myers-Briggs. So.
Yeah. I don't know if you know of any, but that's kind of the extent that I can take this to. Unless you can think of any personality boxes to try to drop our heroes into.
No, except that I grew up through the 1990s, so how we did it back then was just everyone got compared to a Sex and the City character or a Ninja Turtle.
Oh, really? Oh, well, that would work. Ninja Turtles, there's 4 of them.
Okay, so see if Garnet would be the leader type, so she's a Leonardo. Pearl, being the thinker, is Donatello.
Donatello, yeah.
And
so, oh God, obviously, we got Michelangelo.
The other 2 are kind of both Michelangelo, Amethyst and Stephen.
Yeah, because I could definitely see Michelangelo being Amethyst, but Stephen, is not really like Raphael. So.
Yeah, they don't really have an angry one in the main 4.
No, I guess they do not. No. I mean, Garnet is a badass, but she's not angry. She's not angry at all.
No, in fact, she's angry far less than you'd expect from her in some situations.
Yeah. I really like that aspect of her too, is that she's kind of the muscle. She's the one that will take care of business, but you really absolutely never get that angry vibe from her. She's very cool.
Yeah, I
love that.
I'm getting the impression so far that she has some very deep and intense emotions, but you have to get very deep and intense with her to set them off or bring them to the surface. So she is not like this week. She was in all the traps and pretty much kept her cool for most of them, which I think is partly because she's been this adventurer warrior for many, many years. And in some ways, this is a bit of a day at the office for her, and it doesn't scare her or anger her the way it would many of us. Probably shouldn't scare or anger the other 2 either, but they wear their emotions very much on their sleeve, and so I can buy that. I would think it would take something very scary, very personal maybe, or something of seriously high stakes because most of what we've seen so far, the stakes have either been distant enough that she can keep her cool, or it's really only been a matter, as far as we can tell, of individual lives at risk. So only her own life or one of the other three, well, quote, only her own life, one of the other three, but it's possibly comparatively small to someone who's saved the world every so often, especially if they've done it so often that a mere threat to one's own life is just not a thing anymore. It's just not the trauma it might be for someone else.
Doesn't even register. And we saw that she was protecting Stephen through this whole thing, and she didn't flinch. She just did what she needed to do, and it did not seem to tax her skills at all.
Yeah, very nurturing, protective of Stephen this week. We saw that side of her pretty clearly. I
really liked that.
Yeah, It was actually very parenting or even maternal, the way she just took him through a trap while he was having a snooze.
It was like, well, Stephen is napping, or maybe he fainted, or maybe he went into a fugue remembering this thing or something like that. But she just carried him. Just like, well, on the last one, he did a little dance and fell down and triggered this trap for this room to fall apart. And I had to jump and stick my feet in a rock to rescue him. And his hair caught on fire. So that was how that one went. And then second one, he triggered a trap and almost got stabbed, and I had to pull out my hands, my gloves, to stop him from getting squished. So, might as well just carry him through this one. It's no big deal.
She was, and there's the word again, kind of nurturing his adventurer potential this time. She could have very easily have just been practical and said, no, Stephen, it's too dangerous. You stay here, which would not have been the wrong decision by any means. But she obviously thinks there's at least potential for him to show his stuff, and that even at this early age, it's worth seeing what he can do.
I appreciate that assessment of her, because I was at the same place following this episode, thinking like she wants to give him room to grow without killing himself.
That's
and
the word.
she keeps giving him that chance. It's not like she just looked at him messing up and then said, yeah, this is too dangerous. Whereas that's kind of where Pearl was. She was like, no, I'm having second thoughts of bringing him. And Garnet's response was shh, just look at him. It was so cute, like the way that she said that. And he's standing there with his arms crossed, looking all sour, covered in schmutz, and having been attacked by butterflies and all indignant about it. And she looks at him and says, like, just look at him. He wants to come. He wants to help. He's got to learn.
We also saw how she only does so much on the surface because Stephen's hair was on fire, but she was like, that's obviously something you can deal with. You can put your own hair out.
Yeah. When she rescues him and pulls him up by his feet, and he's just like, that was seriously dangerous. Thank you, Garnet. Like he's saluting her. That's adorable.
I think she figures a bit that somewhere between being part gem and a cartoon and little child, he can take a few knocks.
Probably. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure whether she knows his limits, but he doesn't know his limits either. So that's fair.
But we've seen a few times where Stephen's had a bit of a pratfall, and she's mostly sort of observed whether he's okay rather than freaked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When they were falling from when the pyramid turned upside down, and, Garnet lands, Pearl lands, Amethyst lands, Stephen's just lands right on his stomach. So he might need to be careful there. He's got a precious stone in his belly button that he keeps falling right onto. Yeah. So he should probably watch that.
Well, to say nothing, he must have some amazing spinal column if he's still able to walk after all some of the knocks he's been through.
Yeah. It's got to be either gem magic or cartoon physics.
Or he's just one of those apparently indestructible children.
I have a couple of friends who have sons like that. There's one in each family, and they fall out of trees and they go to the ER, fairly regularly, like they should have a punch card.
Yeah.
And they survive everything.
One of my friends, when they were a kid, pulled a huge bookcase down on themselves, and once they got them out, they were just like, fine.
Wow.
Just made of rubber.
Goodness. Probably the worst injury I ever had was the aforementioned time I fell out of a moving truck. So
Oh, yes.
really am not an accident-prone person, and I don't think I'm particularly impervious to such things, so I'm glad.
Yeah, no, I don't plan on falling down any Great Pyramid shafts either.
Should we talk about the music?
Let's talk about the music. We haven't had any in a while. Oh, I will say on that note, apart from the songs, I really loved the score during the Step on the Right Panels room.
Yeah, very video gamey.
And a change from some of the other score we've had so far. It's a whole different set, so I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. They had an instrumental track called Strawberry Battlefield / The Sleeping Pyramid, and then they also had Heart of the Pyramid, which both of those are kind of the really neat, just atmospheric songs for what they were dealing with. I really like those too. I have the instrumental tracks and I listen to them. And of course, Serious Song was him singing with his ukulele.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, yeah, that's not on any CDs.
Oh, I'm surprised because I know from some of the things you've said that it doesn't take much for one of their songs to get onto a CD.
You know, there have been a couple of them where I wondered, why did they pick this one? But it seems like they ignore his little ditties and stuff, even though this one had ukulele accompaniment. You know, they could have included that one. I don't actually know who wrote it. I could probably look it up, but they did have the storyboarders for this one where Joe Johnston and Jeff Lew writes a lot of the music that is goofy little stuff like that. He plays guitar, and so I wonder if he was involved or if this was Rebecca. I don't know.
I guess it's something Stephen gets from his dad.
Yeah, definitely the musical side. Of course, we don't know very much about his mom at this point. So
True. And they did originally bond over Greg's music, so maybe she's a bit of a musical type too.
Yes, she attended his concert all by herself. We're going to talk about related factoids also. We mostly focused on the four main characters, but we did get to see the ride operator who yelled at Stephen, as you mentioned. He has a name. It is Mr. Smiley. He's voiced by Sinbad, if you can believe that.
Oh, right.
I think he had a little cameo in the previous episode, too. He was, because those roller coasters and stuff belonged to his Funland. I think he was pulling the lever there, but I don't think he talked, that he was trying to stop this bubble that fell onto the kiddie coaster. And he pulls the lever and the thing stops and they rocket into the ocean. I think we've seen him before.
They do like to sometimes drop people in a bit early, so in minor roles before they actually have something to do, just so we've got some familiarity.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I'm almost sure he was one of the people who was having his mouth stuffed with fries also in Frybo.
Yeah, I bet we saw a lot of early cameos in that sequence. Yeah. Once I've met a few more characters, I have to go back and see how many turned up there for the first time.
Trying to remember if I think he might have even talked in that episode. I think he was one of the people who said, "Please, no more fries." So they have to get Sinbad to come to the office just to say, "Please, no more fries." I hope they did it all at once to the little minor things that Mr. Smiley says. He really was very smiley, but he was yelling at Steven. "You're banned from all the rides forever."
It took me a moment, or rather I was taken a little back by his name, because the Family Guy also has an amusement park called Funland, but it's run by someone called Bob Funland.
Oh, okay.
So I had a bit of a cross connection, expected that to be his name.
Oh, that's funny. I don't watch Family Guy, but there's so many references in Family Guy that I feel like I wouldn't even be able to pay attention to it because I wouldn't get most of the references.
I haven't watched it in a good few years either, but I remember that one.
Yeah, it is not a very nice show. This is a nice show.
Yeah, this is very much I think this show could do the cutaway gags, though, but that's probably where it ends.
Yeah. Well, we almost did that in this episode. They're like 2 weeks later.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of a bit like what they call a manatee gag on Family Guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they didn't do what they do. Let's see. Factoids. This was the first time Pearl took the gem. She bubbled that gem and took it instead of Garnet. That was interesting. After the place exploded and Stephen had it sitting on his lap and she came over and took it and put it in her own bubble.
So there are some talents they share.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's not just Garnet that does that. Her bubble was sort of white colored. So it's kind of cool that they're color coded. So theoretically, that means if you go look at the vault where they have them all, in that room,
We'll be able to keep
you
score.
can see who captured what. Although, I mean, Pearl didn't really capture that one, but she put it in a bubble.
I can see Pearl being insistent on having bubbled more than Amethyst, for example.
That makes me think, like in Frido, she's counting those shards and she's like, oh, I had 8 and there were 7. Like maybe she was in there trying to do some scorekeeping.
She probably, apart from the general one-upship, she probably never met a number she didn't like.
Maybe she was going to separately bubble each of those shards so she can have 8 bubbles. I don't know. I don't know for sure if she would be that petty, but it seems like she would definitely have charts somewhere of her records.
Yeah. Also say, we don't know for sure if she'd be that petty. We don't know for sure if she wouldn't.
That's true. Now, definitely if I had to pick somebody who's keeping score, it would be her. So I tried a while back to make sort of a video cataloging references for this. So I didn't get very far. I don't know if I'll ever go back to try to actually complete this. I got through like 17 episodes and I showed it to a friend of mine who, I forget why, but I showed it as like a unlisted YouTube video and it got a copyright claim on it immediately. So I don't know that I could ever release it on YouTube if I did finish it because there's so much like footage and music and things like that in it. So maybe I'd have to release it somewhere else. But the reason I bring it up is that because of researching that video, I found out like a lot of really specific video game references for this episode.
Oh, do tell.
So if we're factoiding, I can tell you I have a list of them that I put in a document over here. So, I mean, obviously it's video games, but it's full of Zelda references mostly.
Oh, right.
I don't play video games really, so I wasn't personally recognizing these. I had to kind of go around to find the footage and stuff. And I found a bunch of footage to compare it, but it's definitely had a lot of specific Zelda references. So like there's like a Triforce on the floor. Let's see, my notes thing says, so the murals look like something in Wind Waker, and pyramid turns upside down like Stone Tower Temple in Majora's Mask. So again, none of these are things I've played, but that's what I found. Apparently in Zelda, there's quite a few places where the doors close to trap you in until you've solved the puzzle. So that's similar. There's a falling block room in that Zelda temple. And Hyrule Castle in Twilight Princess has like a falling block room. It's like that. They said Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time has a similar trap to that spikes in the ceiling. So it's almost all Zelda. But I did also see that some people suggested that feeling of like, oh, I'm getting sick and I feel disoriented and stuff might be a really early video game references to something called Zork 2. And I went and looked that up and looked at like the gameplay. It's one of those old like computer games where it's all text based.
Oh yeah, this one I had played, but
you played Zork
way back when, and we had to load it from cassette.
Yeah, I used to play like one called Cyborg on my old Apple II. That you put the disc in and you run it. You type things and hit run, and it's all commands like go north and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I can kind of see the resemblance between Zork and games like it and the upside down pyramid temple place.
Yeah, I went to look like what, because a lot of times with these things, I'll look them up on like the wiki or something like that, and they'll say it's a reference to such and such. But then I want to know more. Like I want to go see like the actual footage. I want to see it. And a lot of those Zelda games, like it didn't specify in like the obvious places. But I went to go see like, what does this look like? One of them was, it said, you try to go north. It says you're not sure which direction is which. The room is very disorienting. Or another Zork prompt. It says, it's the one with you're likely to be eaten by a grue. I like that. But the carousel room, you're in a large circular room whose high ceiling is lost in gloom. 8 identical passages leave the room. A loud whirring sound comes from all around. You feel sort of disoriented in here. That's like, I mean, these guys got to have played that.
Yeah, that pretty much is the room, just for the number of exits.
Yeah, I was reading off of like a screen cap of that black screen with white, like gray text on it. So that's exactly what it says. It really seems like, I mean, I'd be surprised if it was not a direct reference to that.
Yeah, we've already seen these people are not ashamed of going a bit deeper obscure with their references.
Yeah. I want to see Steven play video games by this point. I want to see what kind of stuff he plays. There's a few Steven Universe RPG games. One just came out actually, and I'm watching playthroughs because I don't have the system to be able to play it. And they're canonical games too. They're written by the creator, so I'm learning new things. Like I'm seeing new stuff right now. It's so cool to get that because this show goes on hiatus a lot, and there's like long periods of nothing.
Yeah, I've heard that from you directly, but also what little I knew of Steven Universe before was one of the things was fans talking about how they were missing the show and it would come back for this time, but only for such a number, and then it would go again.
Well, in 6 days, there will be an hour-long event of 4 new episodes. So, if you see any weird explosions happening in Florida, it's probably my head.
Right.
You see it on the news. Some kind of unexplained beam of light shot out of Tampa, Florida. It was a warp pad. What do you want me to tell you about next? Food or merchandise?
Let's go with food.
Hey!
The food candidate's pretty straightforward this week, being giant strawberries.
You guessed it. Yeah, that's really the only thing that approaches food in this. Although, let's see, what was I thinking? I don't think there's anything else that could be misunderstood as food at this point. But I did attempt to make giant strawberry. I made a cake.
I wondered how we were going to accomplish the giant part.
What's that?
I wondered how you were going to accomplish the giant part of giant strawberry.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't have the ingredients handy, but one of the really cool things that I did was I took real strawberries and I cooked them down because I've actually tried to make strawberry bread before and it was terrible. It was just too moist. It was like biting into some kind of weird soft, just yuckiness, mushy grossness. So I had to come up with another way to get strawberries into my cake that would make it not be disgusting. So I cooked strawberries down. I cooked them for like an hour until they turned into this puree, and I mixed that in to my fairly typical cake batter kind of thing. There are a lot of cakes out there that you can put like applesauce or other kinds of jelly or something like that into. So I just kind of made my own strawberries. I did cool them before I put it in so it wouldn't be piping hot. And I don't recall offhand what else went into the cake besides strawberries, but other than that, it was a pretty typical kind of cake. I made a 2-layer cake. I baked it in round pans, but I cut a little bit out of the top to make it shaped like a strawberry. Mm-hmm. And I also made some strawberry flavored or strawberry pink icing of some kind. It was it was like a pourable kind of icing that was more of a frosting glaze. And I used that to kind of just pour it over the cake and made a very shiny, beautiful glaze. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I found out online that you can make stuff like that dry faster and dry shinier if you use a hairdryer on your cake. So I did that.
Oh, I thought of it. I didn't know anyone else had it. I didn't know if it was real. I didn't know if it would actually work.
Yeah, and I own a hairdryer, but I almost never actually dry my hair. I prefer to let it dry. So I used this hairdryer that I had. And the cake came out shiny and pink and reddish pink as a strawberry shall be. But I also put like a couple sprigs of mint for greenery on the top. And the way that I did little seeds is took some wax paper and I squeezed out little nuggets of chocolate onto them, and I froze it so that I could just peel them off when they were frozen, and just peel them off and kind of put them however I want. That causes me less anxiety than trying to pipe frosting in a specific shape, because once you mess it up, you can mess it up.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and what's really cool about stuff like using white chocolate or chocolate to make designs on wax paper and then freeze it is you can also put them onto the sides of cakes, which I did not do for this, but I have done for other cakes. I've made little snowflakes and put them on snowflake cakes. So I just used the same technique for strawberry seeds. And that is how I made a giant strawberry. And it was one of the most delicious cakes I've ever made from kind of a made up recipe. It was very moist and delicious, and everyone who ate it wanted more.
Success. Nice one.
Yay! Big old strawberry. I unfortunately could not get it quite as big as those strawberries, but it'll do. So, I guess last but not least, shall I talk about a featured merch item?
Featured merch item? Yep. Let's see what we got.
Well, I prefer to do official merchandise. So this is just as a side thing, but I have made a Steven ukulele. This is handmade though. This is homemade. So this does not count as my actual merch item, but he brought his ukulele. So I had to show you this. Yep. So I'll put a picture of that. This is a lazy ukulele thing. I bought like a starter uke to try to learn how to play, and now I know how to play. So I bought a fancier one, and then I used this one for cosplay. I just printed out the design on sticker paper and put it on there.
Cool.
So that's my uke. But my actual piece of merchandise this time is I decided to show you my cool backpack hangers. These are among the best merchandise that they have made for this show that is most faithful to the designs of the characters. And Garnet looks really awesome. There are many of these, but I'm just showing you the main four.
Up Steven's showing off his gem. Good one.
Yeah, there's about 5 Stevens.
Of course.
And I've got Pearl and Amethyst. These backpack hangers are in dollar stores these days. Got a Pearl looking all cute with her skirt, and Amethyst all carefree and cute. These are, what do you call it? They were sold as mystery bag items. So you had to keep buying them to get the whole set. And the mystery item was actually the subject of next week's episode.
Oh, a cliffhanger, everyone.
Yeah. I might have to follow up and that one, but it's the rare one. Weirdly enough, I got it in my first attempt. So then one of the other ones that is not rare at all was the one I could not seem to get, and I had to buy new ones 4 times before I got the entire set.
If I had them, I'd probably use them as Christmas decorations.
Mm-hmm. They called them backpack hangers, but I would be nervous to put that on my backpack because it looks like the clip is not super sturdy. So I have them in a cute display on a display of many, many other Steven Universe related toys. So, but Steven Universe merchandise does tend to be a little bit awkward looking. Like they don't translate all that well to 3D. So I was impressed by how good the likeness was on these ones. They came out looking exactly like the characters, and I cannot say that for most of the plushies and other toys.
Yeah, no, I've seen enough to realize how some bits of solid Steven Universe merchandise work out better than others.
Yeah, I'll definitely be glad to show you some unfortunate and awkward versions of these guys. But the ones that I showed you this time were pretty faithful.
Yeah, I thought they were pretty good, especially Garnet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were 2 of her. I only brought one to the camera, but she looks like herself.
Yeah, yeah, she's quite fierce there.
Yeah. What I like about these also is they're all approximately the same size. And if you tried to make Garnet, she would be too huge for your backpack. So it's cool that they made her squatting so that she's at the same size as Steven.
Yeah, but everyone's in scale, such as it is.
Pretty much. Yeah, they had Pearl kneeling down too, that she's doubled up because she's pretty tall too. She usually comes up to about Garnet's shoulder, I think. But of course, Garnet is head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah. And you don't want them too long or tall if you're going to have them hanging off people's backpacks.
That's what I thought. So I think it was smart of them to take the tall ones and squish them so that they were not miniature, but they were realistically bent up. Take some height off those legs. And Amethyst and Steven are standing up like normal. Although Amethyst is a little bigger than Steven, and she doesn't look bigger in this. So is what it is. That's all the content I have for you. What else should we talk about? Anything else for follow-ups?
No, we went pretty deep with recap when we did the post recap of this one, getting into what was referenced, what the characters were showing about themselves. For an action episode, we got a lot of character beats to work with, and got a lot of Garnet, which you don't often get much of her character.
It's true. Yeah. Actually, at the beginning of this one, you said that this might be your favorite, or it was one of your favorites so far. Can you isolate why that is?
Let's have a think. I think partly I just liked being carried along by the pace of this one. It had the action and the humor. Some of it was just individual moments, like every time Steven burst out with some kind of serious Steven thing. And background stuff like Amethyst getting trapped and retrapped over again. And we got a bit of world building, but just enough to keep us interested. So I think, it was another sort of perfect storm kind of thing that, just so many bits that I liked that it all came together, and I just plain old enjoyed watching it.
Yeah. All right. If you were allowed to, not to make this into another probing question, but if you were allowed to choose which of the gems was a focus character next, like, we needed a Garnet episode, we need an Amethyst episode, who would you want to be
I would like
next?
To see a bit more about what makes Amethyst tick, I think, because what we've seen far has been very superficial. I mean, she does seem to be fairly superficial in general. Maybe finding out what more there is to her.
Cool.
A bit of what makes her ostensibly a grown-up and Steven ostensibly a child, because often there's not much gap going on between those two.
I would agree. When I bothered you into choosing a favorite early on, you did say that you were going with Amethyst for the time being. So I am not too surprised to hear that you'd like to see more about her. Early connection there.
Yeah. And we've kind of had a bit of a focus of the other two so far too. We had Garnet and Pearl a few weeks ago, got maybe not hyper-focused, but we got some good look at her during the Fry episode, amongst other moments.
Yeah, you're right. Neither one is one that I would say like, oh, this is an Amethyst episode, this is a Pearl episode, this is a Garnet episode, but there was definitely like a little spotlight for a while for both Garnet and Pearl. And Amethyst didn't really get that very much when she was a little bit spotlighted teaching Steven how to shapeshift. It was mostly like she caused a problem and then she left on the gem sloop.
Yeah. Which is not entirely out of character for what we've seen so far, to be fair.
That's right. All right. So fingers crossed for an Amethyst episode, huh?
Yeah.
That would be cool. Well, you want to wrap up here?
Yeah. Thank you all for listening, everyone. We'll be tuning in next time for more of me learning about the universe of Steven.
We will see you then.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye. You've been listening to Ivy and Daria on Not So Giant Women.
You can find episodes of the show in video form by looking up Not So Giant Women on YouTube.
Or in audio form at anchor.fm/NotSoGiantWomen or your podcatcher of choice. You can also find us on Facebook.
Audio production by Daria.
Video production and music by Ivy.
Daria can also be heard on Podsploitation, the Ozploitation podcast.
And Ivy at her Steven Universe fan blog at love-takes-work.tumblr.com.
Steven Universe was created by Rebecca Sugar and remains property of Cartoon Network.
No infringement is intended.